Let's start this off. Apologies everyone for the technical difficulties.
Oh no, I'm back, but now my video works. All right. All right, sorry about that. Are we ready to go, Lauren?
Yep.
All right, well, welcome everybody to the last BPAC meeting for 2020. I will now go ahead and call the meeting to order at 6:05. I'll request that the staff call the roll, please.
Member Bergman. He's here.
Present.
Member Haggerty.
Here.
Member Mooney.
Here.
Member Powers.
Here.
Member Solomon.
Here.
Chair Allison.
Here.
Youth Member Harlem. Not here. Youth Member Nielsen. Alternate Member Coyne. Alternate Member Garrity.
Here. Are any of the alternates playing for real this time, or do we have everybody here?
Yeah, so I'll cover more of this, but with the absence of both youth members and if alternate member Coyne being gone, alternate member Garrity would serve as a voting member for this meeting.
Thank you, Lauren. Would you read the spiel about how to phone in and participate from a phone?
So this meeting is being held virtually and viewers are welcome to provide public comment online or by telephone at 669-900-9128. And the ID is 812-6822-8704. If you're watching the meeting and wish to provide public comment, please select the participants icon and select raise hand. If you are participating by telephone and wish to provide public comments, please press *9 when the chair opens the public comment period. When it is your time to speak, you will hear a notification that you have been unmuted and you will have 2 minutes to speak. With that, alternate member Coyne has been our timekeeper the last 2 meetings. Do I have anyone who wouldn't mind being timekeeper for this meeting? Just using your cell phone and holding it up. Okay. Member Haggerty, awesome, thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, Lauren. Let's go ahead and move on to item number 2 on the agenda, public comments for items that are not on the agenda. This is an opportunity for anybody from the public who'd like to make a comment for any item that won't be addressed later during the meeting. So I'll go ahead and invite public comment for anyone.
Craig Murray, let's see. Oh, April, I can't unmute people. I think you're gonna have to do it.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Okay, Craig, it should have asked you to unmute yourself.
Okay, testing 1, 2, 3. Everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. So, folks, I did provide this in written format. Lauren posted it with the agenda material. Just FYI, if you haven't had a chance to read it. Basically 3 items tonight. One is bicycle-friendly America application. We do have some Santa Fe businesses already have been recognized. Kaiser, Kuvara Law Firm, and then also Marin County, City of Mill Valley has been recognized. So my request to the BPAC is really to request city staff to go for an application and also find a contact at Dominican University to apply at the university level as well. The reasoning and details are within the written correspondence. If you could follow that. If I have time, I could go back to it. Second item is safe routes to school planning meeting. So I want to thank Chair Allison and Lauren Devani, Kate Powers as well. We are all in those meetings, and I think they're very good initial meetings to look at various locations in Santa Fe, and particularly the North Santa Fe area, and movement of kids from west part of 101 over to the east part. And Kate also had some good comments in the Terra Linda area. And the request there is basically for the city to continue to support safe routes, making important improvements to the north and other parts of Santa Fe. Last item, I think Patrick Seidler may speak to this a little bit more, is requesting the city to support efforts to flatten Porto Swallow Hill. And that in particular is, which I've experienced on rides, for instance, when County Supervisor McGlashan passed on, a lot of folks couldn't make it up and over that hill. So thanks, Kevin, on the timing. So the request here is basically to review areas to improve the important gap closures of the Greenway bike path. There's one that is will be discussed a little further tonight. I had basically several items. One, it provides relatively level trail connecting smart route access to central to north Santa Fe, allows safer passage, particularly with the recent deaths and accidents at the crossing of North San Pedro Road, allows predictable, safer, smooth access for kids coming up from the canal area to Venetia Valley School. It also puts more eyes and travelers in unapproved residential areas to help prevent some of the clandestine homeless encampments that are happening, and provides value to the area and the Greenway by making the trail connected and available. So the request is the city's BPAC to make a recommendation and endorsement to the city council to request SMART to complete and connect this important gap in the Greenway. That's the end of my comments. Again, those are written format for the note taker tonight and posted online. So thanks to Lauren, everybody. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Now we have Patrick, who's up.
Thank you very much. Good evening, BPAC. Good to see all you guys. I want to thank you guys all once again for all the great work that you guys have been doing. Santa Fe has really just been doing an incredible job on all the bicycle and pedestrian projects. So kudos to you guys. Tonight, I'm bringing up a very, very important segment of the North-South Greenway that's in your fingertips to make happen. The SMART has been conducting some listening sessions, and it's come up on numerous occasions that one primary segment that needs to be completed is from the top of Porto Swallow Hill to North San Pedro Road. And in fact, if you go back to SMART's 2014 strategic plan and look at the criteria on page 9, it says that they're going to prioritize those sections that have critical access to smart stations, have high potential use, provide critical access across geographic and physical barriers, or bridge gaps between existing segment pathways. So this segment from the top of Porto Swallow Hill to North San Pedro Road would wind down inside the railroad right-of-way, and has been in every city. It's in all those plans on that document that I handed out to you that Lauren forwarded to you. So it's in the Smart Civic Center Station Area Plan. It's in the Marin County Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan. It's in the San Rafael Updated Master Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan. It would also allow students to get from the canal to Venetia Valley School. So the San Rafael City School District is also very interested in it, because 75% of the students that go to Venetia Valley come from the canal. And so SMART's up right now, and what they're doing is they're looking for input. And the way that this works, the way that we've built the Greenway for 27 years, we've been working on it. And the way that it works is you get interest groups to get on the record and say, yes, this is what we want done. And so what we'd like you to do is we'd like the BPAC to take this up as an agenda item and to make a recommendation to the city council, and have the city council ask SMART to, this is the only segment of the Greenway that has not been environmentally cleared from Larkspur to Cloverdale. And we want them to get it environmentally cleared, get 30% engineering, and get the environmental permits. It's all well within the bounds of reason. And when we have more of a time to discuss it, I will tell you that there is money to build it. And so all we need to do is get the city council to ask SMART to build the pathway. So thank you guys very much for your attention to it. Please read the map if you can. And I'm more than willing to take anybody out there to take a look at it so you can get a view of where the pathway would go. It's been designed 4 times already by an engineer who used to work for SMART and the county, so that we know that it can be built. Paul Klassen has designed it 4 times. He's engineered it. So anyway, you guys are going to be the ones that push that rock and get it over the tipping point. And all what we need you to do is to familiarize yourself with it, put it on the agenda, go out, take a look at it, and see what a critical connection path this will make for a difference in our county. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.
I'm gonna try Kathy. She didn't raise her hand, but I don't know if she knows how. So Kathy, it should have.
Actually did it twice, but I think I toggled it on and off.
Oh, okay,
Sorry about
perfect. There you go.
Okay, so here I am. I am here to advocate for creating safe routes to schools and safe access from our neighborhoods in the North San Pedro neighborhoods of the Raphael Meadows, Redwood. I'm sorry, I forget the name. My mind is just going nuts right now. We've got Marydale multi-unit housing along Marydale Avenue. All of this area is unfortunately hemmed in by smart tracks, and Highway 101 is splitting us from the schools that are natural or our district schools. So what we need to have happen is for this, there is a really rough path underneath the Highway 101 overpass along the smart tracks, along the south side of it, that needs to be opened up and created an ADA level path that you can have bicycle and pedestrian access, so that we can have a safe routes to schools and safe routes to our wonderful civic center from our area, which is really a very short walk, but it's an unfortunately unpleasant one because of the conditions of that walkway. Or it's not really an official walkway, but it needs to become one. So for the longest time, we've had to either drive our kids to Venetia Valley School or, you know, have them bus there, when it's really quite an easy bike ride or walk if we had a safe route. This little area has had very little attention from the city of San Rafael for infrastructure, and we're way overdue. Right now, what we have is a bike route that goes down Las Colinas Avenue and dead ends at Marydale. So it's kind of like a bike route to nowhere, but it is super close to making that connection to the beautiful new bicycling and pedestrian facilities that have been built at the Civic Center side of 101. And it's a huge opportunity to make a connection that could make the lives of our residents in this area much, much better, and safety for our kids, getting them out of cars, getting them out of buses, to have safe routes to school. So I am requesting that you put this on your agenda to get the attention of the city, the BPAC, and do the coordination that's necessary between the county, the city, Caltrans, and SMART to get this little missing link unclogged, unblocked. That's what I'm here to ask for your help with. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. On that note, I will just point out that exact item that you're talking about has actually come to the BPAC before. It's been a few years at this point, but I guess I'll just point out that I know that part of the challenges at that time that were identified is the fact that that area that you're talking about is state property. It's not the city's property, so the city doesn't have the right to go in there and build items. That's something that needs to be broached with Caltrans. And there's actually, if I could just point you to, there's a lady named Jean Severinghouse who attends these meetings normally, and she is Marin County's member at large for the Caltrans Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, and she might be a good point of contact for you.
Right, but I'm actually really looking to have the help of organizations whose mission it is to create these links. I cannot fight this fight anymore on my own. I have just been beaten down by trying to get things happening through SMART, through the city. Everybody looks at each other saying, it's yours, it's mine, and nothing happens. And quite frankly, I feel like I'm tired. I need help. And if I have the support of the BPAC, I think you guys have a really strong voice. You're well respected. You're well connected. I don't think it's an option to just pass it back to me to go and figure it out. I'm done. Unless I'm going to get some help and support from the BPAC, I feel like, what's the point? Maybe I should just move. And that's an unfortunate place to be for me. But, you know, my kid is long past, you know, flying the nest, but this is not for me anymore. It's for other people that still live here and have this need. And BPAC, I understand that your whole mission is to make, you know, our community more bike friendly and walk friendly. This is a wonderful opportunity to connect some really good infrastructure and make the lives of people in this area much more just better and healthier and get us out of our cars. So thank you for that information. But honestly, I really am asking for your help here.
So I just have a question about agendizing the items. Lauren, are you keeping track of these to add them to the agenda for January or February or whenever our next meeting is, or who's keeping
Yes.
track of these?
Yeah, I'm taking notes.
Okay.
Do we need to move to put them on there, or?
No.
No.
I also was wondering if I could ask a clarifying question of Patrick's presentation or comment.
Can we keep the public comment moving? I'm just worried a little bit about time.
Okay.
It looks like, hey everyone, this is Bjorn Griebenberg, Policy and Planning Director at Marin County Bicycle Coalition. Looks like I was up next because I got an unmute notification. Hope you're all doing well. I just wanted to echo and add to Craig and Patrick's comments about the smart pathway, both the gap at Portezuelo Hill and just the pathway as a whole. Definitely echo their sentiment about the importance of that that gap. As you all know, a bicycle connection is only as strong as its weakest link. So it would be really nice to see that section connected up to the beautiful new pathway that from North San Pedro up to Civic Center and beyond. As you all know, not much of the smart pathway in Marin has been built. By our math, only about 2 out of 9 miles. So you've got about 7 miles to go, mostly between San Rafael and Novato. And I think it would be a really good exercise for this committee to take a look at the remaining sections within your city limits and think about priorities. For example, you've got the section downtown between 2nd and Mission. You've got the gap up at Portezuelo Hill. There's another gap between McGinnis and Smith Ranch, between McGinnis and Smith Ranch, which has actually already been designed and has just been sitting there waiting to get funded for years. So I think that would be a great exercise for your committee. And I also want to plug Smart's listening session specifically for the bicycling community will be Wednesday, December 16th at 5 p.m. I don't think they've announced that on their website yet, but keep an eye. What they do is they post a link and then you have to register to participate in those meetings, but they are open to the public. And you're the exact type of people that they want to hear from on not just the pathway, but other issues around bicycling and smart. So, you know, bikes on board, bike parking at stations, all things bike and smart related. That's all from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bjorn.
There's no more public comment that. Right now.
Okay, great. Thank you, April. Well, we will go ahead then and close the public comment period. I will note that there are materials posted to the city's website as correspondence related to the comments from both Craig and Patrick. So if anyone from the public who's listening would like to see those items, they're on the city's webpage attached to this this meeting. Let's go ahead and move on to item number 3. Remembering Jerry Boletto. For those who may not have heard, unfortunately, Jerry Boletto, longtime member of this committee, as well as other, as well as the Planning Commission for the city, passed away in the last month. And the city included a nice little kind of memorial for Jerry in the meeting packet.
Yeah, I just wanted to take a moment to honor him, and we should all be really thankful for his contributions to San Rafael. So he'll be missed. Think of his family. That's it for that item. We can go ahead and move on to the next item.
Item number 4, committee housekeeping. So this is in response to, there's actually a staff report attached to this packet. Lauren, are you going to kind of talk about this?
Yeah, I can. So I was trying to finally mimic the format of a city council meeting and put a staff report in front of you, in front of the committee and the public to go over some things. I don't have a presentation with this item, but we were covering a bunch of different things. That's why I called it housekeeping. So just comment on committee procedures. We don't always need letters of recommendation. The feedback that we've gotten at the past meetings about different projects has been tremendously helpful to staff and to consultants. And we take that back as we go through design of things. Voting members, I'm sure there was a question at the beginning of the meeting if one of the alternate members would move into Member Boletto's place, but we're actually gonna try to get this committee down to 7 members, so we're not gonna fill his position. The other item was leadership roles. DJ has graciously led this committee for a while now, and apparently the proper procedure is to have your chair based on seniority. I checked with the city clerk. So with that, Kate Powers will be the chair next year, with Kevin Haggerty being the vice chair. It got a little, because we had to restart somehow. And then 2022, Kevin Haggerty will be chair and Barry will be vice chair. And then the last item in this housekeeping report is just the meetings for 2021 and 2022. They are the first Wednesday of the even months. With that, I'll take any questions.
Lauren, I'd just like to thank DJ. Since my short time being on the committee, we've gone from sort of a ragtag, chillax kind of organization to one with some, with some guidelines put in place now, and we're running like a much better organization. It feels like more professional and more in line with, I think, what the council is looking for as well. So I appreciate the leadership, DJ. It's been really good.
Great.
I'd like to second that thought.
Thank you, guys.
I have a question.
Sure.
So are we all going to get sent out a copy of the new bylaws? Like, are they finished, Lauren, or
No,
they're still
Lindsay,
not
the
finished?
city clerk is still working on them. You'll see them when they're finished.
Okay, and so all committees now are being reduced to 7-member committees?
Most committees are probably 5-member committees right now. So we're a pretty large committee.
So BPAC has always actually been 7 members, an alternate, and either 1 or 2 youth members. The question recently came up about whether youth members were voting members. And to be honest, it wasn't written down anywhere to clarify it. So they basically were they became voting members, but I think the city, so now there's actually 9 regular members instead of 7, which is a lot more than normal committees. And so I think the city is looking to get back to 7 through attrition rather than.
That's interesting. Okay, my understanding was that the youth members didn't count as, and the youth and alternate members were voting, but didn't count as actual members. But all right, that's
I think the youth members are basically regular voting members now. It's just that there's a designated spot on the committee to ensure that there are youth members.
There you go.
So.
Lauren, I have a question about the informational report. I was a little confused about, often it comes up about the BPAC writing a letter, and it's often stated that we should read it before a city council meeting when a project or something is coming before city council. And my reading of the the informational report that you sent was that it sounded like input from BPAC individual members is received during our meetings as an advisory committee. I don't understand whether or not the BPAC ever officially writes a letter of support or takes a position on something before the city council as an advisory committee.
And that can be discussed. What I was trying to say is we don't need a letter to bring to city council for every item. I think I was trying to illustrate that city council is really concerned with what outreach did a project go through. And many, many times we say, we discussed this at BPAC, discussed this with this neighborhood coalition. And we list that in the staff report. And then the details that the committee members of BPAC provide are really helpful to maybe the engineers doing the design. So we can, yeah, I mean, it's up to the group if you want to do letters of recommendation. The problem with that is you have to draft a letter and then talk about it and then bring it to the next meeting. So it can be a couple months and really like it can slow down the process.
I think in terms of bylaws, I think it would be helpful to go through, write down some kind of process. We've had some things that have come before BPAC that we've not agreed on consensus wise. And it just would be good to know what our role is. Beyond discussion, we might all discuss and add things, and it's been discussed at BPAC, but there may be some things where BPAC as an advisory committee really wants to see the council move on something. Whether it's the south side of the smart station path. I know it's not the city's jurisdiction, but the city has council members on the smart board that could be influenced, et cetera. So if there's parts of our master plan that we would like to see prioritized or implemented, or want to take a position on something, I think it would be helpful to have some kind of process or procedures outlined instead of getting to an issue and then saying, well, we don't really have a process for that. I think it's come up enough where we should address that if we're going to have bylaws.
I second that.
I can bring your concerns back to Lindsay.
That'd be great. Thank you.
The BPAC also can make unplanned meetings as well to address things, right?
Yes, we can organize special meetings or additional meetings if we want to.
So then the letter thing isn't really that much of a problem. Unless we don't bother to go ahead and schedule meetings.
Well, can we set up some kind of procedure whereby the BPAC would vote in support of something and authorize someone to write a letter? And then that letter could be, without having another meeting, I mean, could that letter be reviewed, sent out to the members by mail or something? And as long as it's representative of this action that the committee took, I would think that that would be a legal letter. We wouldn't be violating the Brown Act. Or
I mean, we can also just request explicit opinion be included in the staff report. I mean, my personal opinion on this is that we're not an approval body. We don't vote and approve on anything, and the committee is made up of a diverse group of representatives of the city because the city wants diverse opinions. And so when we come to the point where we're making an up or down vote on an item, we're essentially getting rid of the opinions of the members in the dissent. And the city really wants the opinions of everybody. They don't want the opinions of 4 out of 7 members in a letter that says the BPAC says you should do this. So, I've always been of the opinion that it's most appropriate for the city to capture diverse comment from the committee and for the council to understand that there's diverse input from the committee on an item. And then the other point I would say, I also have often had mixed opinions about whether or not the committee should be like, for example, going to a council meeting and reading a letter, especially on an item that's controversial. I mean, we really work for the council. We're not like a advocacy group that's there to be adversarial or confrontational to the council. I mean, we're supposed to be working for the council. I mean, I think it's more appropriate for MCBC to be going to a meeting and making reading a letter that's related to an item that might be controversial for the meeting. I don't know. I mean, that's my opinion on those two items. But
I do think as an advisory committee, though, just saying that in the staff report that we met with BPAC, it doesn't really, there are some items that we may want, we feel strongly enough for that we want to act as an advisory committee and advise and officially advise the council on something. And I just think that it would be valuable to have a process to follow or understand how we do that.
The way I see this committee is it's exactly what the name is. It's an advisory committee, and if like Kate said, it's just saying that the BPAC reviewed it and taking some notes on what people said and stuff is sufficient for some certain items. But I believe that we're an advisory committee. There's no limitation really to what we go over. We go over everything bicycle and pedestrian related. And if it's a major project or a major issue or a major anything, I feel like a little bit more maybe should be taken, or just it seems very behind the scenes, just from my point of view of the city just taking notes and sharing them with whoever.
The meetings are public though.
Yeah, the meetings are public, but what you said you take notes and
the meeting minutes are public also. In fact, we voted and approved them. It's the next item on the agenda, actually.
I'm just thinking like the capital improvements budget comes up or something. There may be times where we want to put our 2 cents worth in, and having a process to do that is valuable, I think.
So by notes you mean
would
okay, good.
like to maybe work with Member Powers and Member Nielsen. You two have been the most outspoken about a process. So if we could talk about, you know, what that process looks like, that'd be great. And maybe we can take that part and have something ready to present.
Okay. I'm a little bit confused. So when you say you give notes to them, are you saying you give like notes of like brief little notes of the thing, or do you actually hand them the minutes and they read over the actual whole meeting?
It's usually summarized.
Summarized? Okay.
Well, it's also a mix, right? I mean, oftentimes we don't just advise the council, we advise DPW. So they bring a project, we give feedback. Maybe that influences changes they might make to the design. When they bring the ultimate project to the council, they say, we presented the project to all these interest groups. They had these kinds of feedbacks.
What? So you're saying that I don't understand why it needs to go through a third party if we're an advisory committee to the council. I'm a little confused.
Well, the DPW is an agency of the city.
Yeah, but from what you said, I'm confused. You said that we're an advisory committee to the council and not DPW. So what? I'm a little confused on why there's a third party involved. Why do we go through?
Well, the council delegates tasks to everybody. Everybody is working for the council.
So then we're an advisory committee to the DPW or whatever you said.
No, it's to the council, but.
All right.
But I think there's a lot of value. For example, we get updates from DPW all the time, and we provide comments to them, and hopefully DPW takes into consideration our comments and may make some changes. I mean, I would hate to give that up.
I don't giving up anything. I just was trying to illustrate there's ways to provide comments, and it doesn't just need to come in a letter form. But we can, if there's a project that this committee feels strongly on, happy to go through the letter writing process.
Yeah, I just not sure how putting it in the hands of to represent this committee of another party just I'm not
Tyler, I'd be happy to clear up any more confusion with if you want to put your questions in an email.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions about item 4 before we move on? All right, We're going to close item 4, move on to item 5, approval of the meeting minutes. Are there any questions or comments about the meeting minutes? No? Okay.
Move approval.
I second.
Lauren, will you take a roll call vote?
Yeah, sorry, note taking too.
Oh, I'm sorry. We need to also, are there any public comments on the meeting minutes?
No.
Okay.
I can go through the roll.
Now can you please take the vote?
Okay. Member Bergman? Bergman. Member Haggerty?
Aye.
Member Mooney?
Approve.
Member Powers?
Yes.
Member Solomon?
Aye.
Chair Allison?
Approve.
Member Garrity?
Aye.
Youth Member Nielsen?
So the public comment isn't included in the minutes. That's what you said?
No, well, every item on the agenda, there's an opportunity for the public to provide comment. So that would have been the opportunity for someone from the public to provide a comment about the meeting minutes that are attached to the meeting packet. So at this point, but we close the public comment. At this point, we're voting whether or not to approve the minutes or not.
Hey, I'm a little confused, so abstain.
Okay. Let's move on to item number 6 on the agenda, 3rd Street Rehab Project. There's a staff report attached to the meeting packet, and who's going to be talking today about this? Is it April?
Yes, yeah, I will be speaking on this project.
All right, welcome, April.
Thanks. Thank you everyone for having me today. Okay, so we're going to go over a little bit about the 3rd Street project. This has been brought to BPAC in the past, but since the last BPAC meeting, we had I guess we had a community meeting before that, but we went to council also. So we kind of just wanted to bring this back up so that BPAC can make any comments based on the comments we've received since we last spoke. So again, the 3rd Street projects are actually 3rd and 2nd Street. These are the limits of the total project. So it goes from Santa Fe High School all the way down to 4th Street and the West End. What we're going to be talking about tonight is the 2nd Street bicycle connection between Shaver Street and the West End. So in this stretch, we are proposing to put in a Class 4 bikeway with a separate pedestrian sidewalk. So here's a couple images of different Class 4 facilities, and it's going to be 2-directional, like the image on the left. So between the sections between G Street and West Street, we were able to maintain 13 on-street parking stalls in this section. In addition, we have provided a 2-way cycle track that goes all the way to Shaver, but based on our last meeting and our last community meeting, we had a lot of comments about providing both parking and a bicycle facility through here. So we were able to provide everything by narrowing the widths of the lanes and narrowing the width of the cycle track and the sidewalk through here. Here's an image at G Street looking to the west, where you can see the 2-way cycle track and the sidewalk through here. Here's a kind of a blown up version of the image I showed earlier. This shows the cycle track and the parking, as well as we are adding a traffic signal at East Street. And this will help facilitate people making the left turns at this intersection and for pedestrians to be able to cross 2nd Street. Here's an image at East Street looking west also, where you can see the parking spaces, the 2-way cycle track through here. Here's a zoomed in version between East and West Street. We're providing 5 parking stalls, and as you can see, there's the 2-way cycle track. And then along the homes here is a sidewalk, which will also have driveways to each of these homes. So these green stripes through here on the bike path is at each one of these driveways. There's quite a few driveways in this section. Now, something new that we have not shown anybody to date is the interim solution between, between West Street and West End. So in this location, as I think most of you know who've ridden their bike through this area, the 4th and 2nd Street intersection is a little crazy and hectic through there. There's a lot of, the pedestrians have to cross multiple locations. There's a lot of medians through here. And so in the future condition, or the ultimate condition, the city is working on a plan to reconfigure this entire intersection. But in order to extend the bike path from West Street, where we originally were showing it end until we came up with a solution, all the way to West End, we were waiting until we came up with something that we could do until we get to this entire large project that we're going to get to. So as you can see, the two-way cycle track continues all the way down the street here, and it stops partway between West Street and Marquard. The bikes that are going, here, I'll zoom in here. So the bikes here that are going westbound, they will have a bicycle signal that they will have to follow through here, because the confusing part about this intersection is there's a left turn pocket that's signalized, and there's also the cars that are coming from West End that are signalized. So bikes going westbound will stop here where my cursor is. They'll have a bike signal that'll get them all the way over to West End. The bikes that are going to the east, they're using a Sharrow from West End. They will stop at the stop sign, and then they will proceed through this intersection area with a Sharrow, and then it'll be combined back into the Class 4 bikeway. And the vehicles through here who are coming eastbound from either West End or Marquard are going to turn right into this little area here, and then they're gonna wait. So it's a shared facility between bikes that are going eastbound and cars that are trying to go eastbound, and they will wait for the traffic signal, and they can only make a right turn across this bike path when the light is green. So there was a list of questions that were in your staff report packet, and so I've just listed these as kind of discussion points. You also have them in your packet, but that's the end of the presentation for this section.
We'll go
you,
ahead and open
April.
up to questions from community members. Questions or comments?
From committee members?
Mhm.
April, this is Kate. I had a question about the widths of the sidewalk from Shaver down to the West End. Is it consistently 5 feet, or are there any infrastructure like light poles or anything on there? I'm as concerned about pedestrian infrastructure as I am about bicycle infrastructure. And it seemed like this was also a pedestrian area of getting to school. So was just wondering if you could tell us the widths of both the two-way bicycle track for each bicycle going each way on the bicycle track, and also the width of the sidewalk.
Yeah, so it does actually vary through here, because when you get really close to the hillside over here between East, you can kind of see it in this image here, between East and G Street, everything narrows down a little bit. So we're still trying to figure out the placement of all of the utility poles, because right now there's PG&E poles that are overhead. So we've asked them to relocate them behind our new retaining wall, so that they're outside of the sidewalk path. So, or they would need to underground them. So we're currently working with PG&E on that. And then in a few spots, we're looking at, if you can see here, this is a signal pole out here. So this is actually a median at East Street, and we're moving the poles out there. So we're still trying to figure out the pole placement, but we're looking at, a 5 or 6 foot sidewalk depending, but in some location, there might be a street light, which will narrow the sidewalk down to 4 feet when you have to go around the pole if it's a 6 foot sidewalk.
So my concern is, even in that graphic that you just showed, it almost looks like one of the pedestrians is pushed out into the bicycle track, just the way it was portrayed. And my concern is with, the guy that's kind of midway on the left-hand side. There are 2 people standing, right there. I'm just wondering, with ADA, a wheelchair, a stroller, and you've got a couple people, I just think we need to think about those folks as in the tight spots and make sure that people don't get pushed out into the bike track, especially if there's a curb That's my concern.
Okay, yeah, we can look at, one of the options was narrowing the bike facility down to 8 feet. I think that's the minimum that's in the standards that we've seen. So that would be a narrower bike path. But if this is more of a commute, more of a commuter bike path, perhaps there's most of the time our bikes are going in a certain direction. So I guess that's something we can explore and finalize those dimensions. But yeah, we do understand that we want to provide a pedestrian and bicycle facility. We've maximized our space as for the travel lanes. Those are all at the minimum that the city is comfortable with going to. So now it would be a matter of, how much width are we going to give the bike facility and how much width are we going to give the sidewalk? That's what we're down to in this location.
And you can't cut back anymore at all on the hill.
No. I mean, there's some rocks out there and stuff. So the further we scoot into the hillside, the more expensive it gets. But this is in one spot, but it also is narrow when you're in front of the home. So we have no more property in front of any of these homes. We're maximizing the public right of way completely in this area where we're showing a 5-foot sidewalk and a 9-foot cycle track. So we don't have any more space here. It also pinches along the hillside, but that's just something we'll have to look at exactly.
What about an even thinner median?
Well, in this location where I'm pointing, there is no median, where there's a turn pocket.
Further down though, that thing right there, that's median, correct?
It is, but it's a matter of how you shift lanes to create turn pockets, and that's what those medians are. And
I see.
We heard a lot of opinions because we were actually removing 3 or 4 larger trees in these medians. And so we are going to put back trees in these little spaces where there's medians here. We're going to put back the trees that we've lost. So that was also public comment we received at the council meetings. We're trying to balance a lot of people.
And I think you're doing an excellent job. I mean, considering the parking of the parking needs and the bicyclist commute, this has been a long time an east-west corridor, and I just think you've done an amazing job. I didn't want to sound like I was criticizing anything.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, I'm actually very impressed that you've been able to hold on to parking in a lot of places and still somehow fit all these facilities into the same amount of right of way we have already. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, we're rebuilding some more sidewalks. We're pushing things to our maximum limits than we were originally doing. So, it adds to the project, but we understand the importance of everybody's needs.
Would you be able to go back to the schematic of the extension, the interim extension, I think is what you called it?
Yeah.
Just wanted to look at that a little more.
Full screen.
I think that looks great. I take that path quite often, going in both directions, of course. I got to get back. But what are your expectations for bikers that are coming up 4th Street? Is that going to be fixed in the major repair?
Yeah. So for now, bikes are going to continue to have to cross the crosswalks here to get to the bicycle facility, just like pedestrians do. In the ultimate configuration, which we're very preliminary on, we're gonna change how the bikes and pedestrians cross. We're gonna simplify this intersection is the goal, and that will come back to BPAC. That'll come back to the community. It's just currently not a funded project because it's going to be so expensive to redo everything. But we are trying to get to a design that we can go after grant funding for. So we will ask for public comment when we get to a point where we can start talking about how that looks.
Roundabouts. It's roundabout time.
That was on the table at one point. But
April, I want to give you kudos on this whole project too. I think it's a great balance, and especially a thank you for our last meeting we voiced some concerns about this interim connection. So I think this is a pretty elegant solution, especially since it's short term until the larger intersection goes. So thank you for listening to that feedback and designing this. I think this is going to be good. Another question with the where the road is narrow by the slope of the hill. Currently, there's a fence that separates pedestrians from the car traffic that's driving very close by. It looked like in all the plans, there's no longer a fence in that narrow place between the pedestrians and the bikes. That's correct?
Correct. There's no longer a fence. We're putting in a retaining wall. That'll be set up a little bit higher to help catch some of that dirt that falls off the hillside there. And so we'll be able to provide a full, 5 foot, ish sidewalk through there, which is now it's probably like 3 maybe with how much that dirt comes down.
And in the design, is there any drainage involved? I say that because right at the crosswalk for G Street, and there's a pole that's right there, is a low spot, and it often holds water, for days after a rain, both debris and water. And so maybe the retaining wall will help a little bit of that and spread where that goes. But I didn't know if that was addressed at all.
Yeah, so since we had to try to fit in all of these different components, we're shifting the existing face of curb towards the homes. There's like a little landscape strip there now. And we're actually pushing the curb in and providing more sidewalk there. So we're gonna have to redo the drainage all through there and add in new catch basins and work on that. So hopefully you're talking about flooding now, since that will be shifted over. Actually, in that location, it might be shifted out with the retaining wall and stuff, but yeah, there'll be new drains all through here.
I have a question. First of all, this looks great. I'm very excited to see this thing move forward. Could you go back to the image of the street level view? I just had a question about that's a raised curb between the cycle track and the travel lane?
Yeah, we're looking at doing more of like a median, which is like what this is a very narrow one that's shown here, but that one is probably more like 3 feet wide, between 2 and 4 feet wide through there. And part of that, I think, is to help with our, our push buttons, because pedestrians need to cross there too. See, so they're going to be coming across and they're going to be standing right here.
Right.
Even though the push button's here, they might, stand here for a little while. So we want to provide kind of a curb through there, something a little more robust. We also got that comment from the public too, that something more than medians through here, or more than bollards through this location. But yeah, right now we're looking at a 6-inch curb that varies in width.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess the only concern I would have is that given the speeds that people come down 2nd Street at, to have something other than a curb, it's just not hard to imagine someone coming down there at night and driving onto the curb, especially if it's a new change in the design of the roadway. So I don't know whether it's signage or I mean, I know bollards tend to get driven over a lot anyway, but especially where the road curves, to have something indicating that there's a shift in the lane, I think that might be helpful.
Okay, thank you. I'll write that down.
Hey, April, I was thinking the same thing as Barry. And also I was just thinking the new pork chop islands that are going to be included as part of the interim solution maybe need paint or a reflector or something just to help drivers see them as well. I know that a lot of drivers have been hitting the new bulb outs in front of the Public Safety Service Center because they stick out, and people have been driving around in the same condition for a long time. Changes you might miss it if you're not paying close attention. So just coloring or something might help avoid drivers from hitting those.
Yeah, that's a good idea. If you can see here, there's one in the background. You can kind of see where the existing one is. So we're just modifying the existing one a little bit. But
I didn't know there was an existing one. I thought these were all new. Okay, well that helps.
Oh, there's an existing mast arm here. We're trying to not affect the traffic signal. But yeah, I do like what you're saying about doing some sort of reflectors or things on these islands to help.
Can you go back to the rendering again? I'm sorry we keep flipping you back and forth over and over again, but so I guess it sounds like the expectation will be that the pedestrians cross the cycle track and the crossing indicator button will be at the curb. Is that correct? Kind of where the tactile warning strips are shown. Is that right?
This is just a rendering, but I thought that the push button and these warning devices are actually going to be back at the sidewalk. Okay. And then I don't know if we might add in a second one here. I'm not exactly sure. We're going to have to work with the design on this.
So my thought was that I know it lengthens the pedestrian crossing distance a little bit to have people do the full crossing, but I worry that the little divider curb there is not going to be very wide. And because of how fast traffic goes, what you're going to have are people standing in the cycle track waiting to cross, because they're not going to want to stand 2 feet away from a car going 40 miles an hour. And so what you'd end up with is just pedestrians standing in the cycle track waiting to cross, if that's where the button was located. So unless you really think you got adequate width for a pedestrian to stand out of the roadway and out of the cycle track at the same time next to fast moving traffic, you might just want to configure it so that the pedestrian makes the crossing all the way in one go, rather than standing at the street side of the cycle track.
Yeah, that's a good point. The push button will be over here on the sidewalk. I'm just thinking there might be pedestrians who stand out here anyways, which we can't prevent. And so I think they're gonna have to make the cross the whole way, but currently we don't have any signal to stop the bikes when that happens.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's something.
April, could I throw in something here?
Mm-hmm.
So, hi, my name is Robert. I'm helping April with this. And, we've been actually thinking about this very question right here. And what we had contemplated is, if we think there's a large pedestrian volume and a pedestrian demand here and a large concentration of pedestrians at this location that potentially create a conflict, we're sort of dreaming that, is there an option that would bring the cycle track in towards the hillside and the sidewalk up to the street and create a mixing zone on either side, so that pedestrians, as they're waiting, would be waiting alongside the street and cyclists would be directed back towards the hillside. This probably would require making this whole segment a little wider and making the wall a little taller and being very expensive, and also creating 2 points of conflict between cyclists and pedestrians. So we're not sure if that's a good plan of attack. This happens over by the Golden Gate Bridge, if you're familiar with the Class 1 trails and where the bikes are designated there. That was an idea we had. I'm not 100% convinced it's right for this area here, but we'd love to hear some feedback about that.
I was just about to say that, actually. Have you guys looked at just swapping it? Like, you guys have looked at it?
Yeah, we have. Yeah, we have looked at it. There's some issues with the driveways in other parts of this path when we're further to the west. So we'd have to flip them back and forth on either side. So that's kind of the.
Okay, I see.
Do it just here and then come back, and are there 2 conflict zones between bikes and peds, or is it just when they cross the street here?
I guess my initial feeling is that it doesn't feel to me like it would be a problem if they kind of crossed, or if that whole area was maybe just striped with crosshatch to kind of indicate a crossing area rather than 2 separate paths, next to each other. I also am wondering, if you really need 2 crosswalks here, because it crosses to a T with no destinations on the south side of the street. So I guess I wonder whether or not we really need 2 crosswalks either. We might be able to simplify things a little bit.
It was a recommendation by our traffic engineer to have 2 crosswalks through here, since it's a safer route to school and people can choose what side of the road they go on.
The other accommodation we thought about was maybe, just in this location, maybe we slide the wall back a foot or 2 just to provide a little bit more of a refuge for pedestrians as they wait, and then maybe to encourage them to not use the cycle track. And then that would provide a little bit more flexibility for folks that might be walking east to west along the sidewalk.
Will this cycle track be painted green as is shown here?
It will only be painted green at the conflict zones. So we can paint it green through here because it's a conflict with pedestrians, and then where the driveways are through here, every time there's a driveway, we have green, and then crossing the streets, we have green.
I just think for that particular crosswalk area there, and if you're worried about pedestrians congregating in the bike zone, standing on something bright green is a good reminder that it is actually a bike zone and not just a place to stand.
Yeah,
So
another
I do think that would help.
Yeah, another idea would be to actually, when we get to this intersection, kind of do a slow, like the bike path would slowly raise up and it would be at equal grade to the sidewalk through this, between these two crosswalks, and then ramp back down. So it'd be a warning for bikes to slow down because this is a large conflict area where pedestrians are mixing with bikes. And that kind of just allows for, and we could do it a color or something, but it would just kind of identify it for both parties, since it'd be like an equal zone through there. Just an idea.
I have a concern about I think that ultimately at the end of the day the current width for crossing is not going to work. You have to expand into the hill more or something, because what if there's a bicycler going through there and they want to turn and they're trying to go onto I don't know the name, the street. If they want to cross, I can't really see them putting their bike there and standing there. Their bike would be sticking inside the bike lane or sticking onto the road, one of the two. If a bicyclist wanted to cross.
That is a good point. That makes all the more sense for Robert's idea about kind of the mixing zone, or the kind of crossing the paths.
I'm just imagining myself if I were to cross there, someone would either shove their bike onto oncoming traffic or onto it would just become a mess of traffic for either bikes or cars. So yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to talk about this being a mixing zone, because I guess I kept thinking about pedestrians crossing to the north, but bikes are going to want to cross to the north too, and kids on bikes going to school. So maybe this raised idea does make sense, to have everybody slow down through here in order to allow bikes to park, wait there, and pedestrians.
Yeah, and I guess I forget who someone suggested that making the crossing of the bike lane, just keeping it very separate, make the crossing of it like very well known, and like very signify that this is a crosswalk. You're not standing in here. So even people with strollers and like larger groups and stuff don't stand inside there, just to signify it. And maybe even a sign, because I know some people might completely ignore that. A sign might even on the, what do you call it, the light post.
I don't know, just getting back to the idea about raising the curb, that also just seems, now that I'm thinking about it, if you can imagine if you were biking, let's say, down the cycle track, and there was somebody waiting to cross onto G Street, that person on their bike would be taking up the whole cycle track, sitting in the cycle track waiting to cross. And it would be difficult for somebody to go around somebody else on the track, because the cycle track is recessed in between two curbs. If you had everything raised at the same elevation, everyone would slow down. It would also make more space for people to sort of be able to pass each other. Because the way it stands right now, pedestrians could pass things easily, but a bike is confined between the curbs, right? So their passing space is a lot narrower. It almost seems like you would reduce conflict by giving everybody a little more space to cross.
Anybody else, like from the committee? I think we probably have some people with their hand raised. I can't tell with my screen shared.
Yeah, if there's no more community member comments, let's open it up to public comments.
Okay, it looks like Dawn, I just unmuted you, or you can unmute yourself.
I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good. Thank you very much. I'm a former member of the BPAC, and I was also on the committee for Fairfax, San Anselmo, San Rafael study about 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago. I can't remember when it was. And we had a lot of these concepts in there. And I must say, you guys have done an excellent job of taking what we had at that time and making it into a reality. It's really, really wonderful. And by the way, one of the things that we came up with in that study, I don't know if it was put in there, is rather than having bikes on 4th Street, going to the intersection of 4th and 2nd would be just to go down G Street, cross there, and then get on the bike path. I don't know if you guys have considered that as part of a solution, which probably wouldn't be part of this project. But my real question is, when you look at that drawing that you have for 2nd Street, 4th Street, and West End, that what you put in there, I must say it's a very creative design, but I'm just concerned that it's not quite, what should I say? Maybe it'll be intuitive when you write it, but it's not really a normal way of doing things. What I'm asking is, when they redesign this intersection of 4th, 2nd, and West End, so is this just a temporary until they get to that point? Because things might change rather dramatically when you do that particular design. And one other comment, when we were doing the West End, which has been a bunch of years ago, we wanted, the bike community really wanted what we call tables at the intersections of Shaver, F Street, which are not signalized. And one of the reasons we wanted them was to slow down traffic and to put in colors on the table that basically tell people something's different here, guys. And you're trying to do the same thing with those crosswalks. And I really support that, because it's a great way for people to slow down, which is what you need. I mean, a cyclist along there can do 20 miles an hour, and they're supposed to do probably 15, but that tends to slow people down.
Thank you, Don, for the comments. April, who's next?
Looks like Jean.
Hi, Jean.
Hi, everybody. I like the new interim connection. Thank you. It looks great. I have a concern, or just something I really wanted to discuss a little bit about the G Street intersection. If we can go back to that street view, I've long thought about it because I've been through that with kids on the, and actually parents, the whole task force for the audit for safe routes to school. And I've also watched kids come down, and kids come down G Street, and then they're turning left to get on the essentially what will now be the bike path. So they'll cross on that west side crosswalk. And I think you shouldn't make any sharp curb cuts there where they're entering the bike path. It should absolutely not have abrupt curbs there. So raising the whole area with a good ramp, but no sharp curbs, because you know they're coming in groups. There's a bunch of them. They're crossing all at once. So making a little narrow, like 5-foot wide sidewalk place to get onto there sounds like kind of a bad thing. And then I've also thought about this crosswalk on the east side there. And it sounds like you said the traffic engineer recommends it because you do have to somehow get up G Street. But the way that signal works is that virtually all of the cars coming down G Street are turning left. And so that's going to mean that crosswalk is in conflict with all of the traffic, of which there's a lot coming down G Street and turning east on 2nd. So I don't know how you're going to address that, but the west side crosswalk works well because it doesn't have that conflict. So if you could please address that, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Jean. Who's next, April?
Looks like Dave Rhodes.
Hey there. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Thanks. Yeah, I mainly wanted to comment on the interim facility that's proposed tonight. First off, I think it was, first look at it, I think it looks really great. I'm really just thankful for you guys to consider it as part of this project. I think it's just super, super important. I live really, really close to this. And I think it's great. I have a couple of questions that I'd love to hear from April on, or just the team here about how how I guess cars are cycling. I guess cars would understand and navigate that right turn from whatever street that is right below. Yeah, exactly right there. And then is there I'm just kind of curious where the signal is for them to know it's safe to merge onto eastbound. Is that right there? I see. Interesting. Okay. Is that new or existing?
It's new. Existing today, it's more of like a lane that cars speed up to.
Yeah. Yeah. I know what you mean. Yep.
So now they would have to wait at a signal, and there'd be a sign that says "Do not turn on red."
Mm-hmm.
And there's enough space for a car and bikes to fit here, but it's only going to be the direction going eastbound. So
yeah. It's interesting. Okay. Yeah, there's just definitely going to be some thought to figure out that little bit of conflict. I almost wonder if it makes more sense somehow to continue I don't know. It's just really tight. It's just really, really tight there. To continue the double track to where the intersection is. Yeah, just to the left there, to the west. So I don't know. I'm not sure, but I know it's temporary, or it's relatively temporary, hopefully. So I think that obviously we're managing a lot of different conflicts here, but it's definitely an improvement, and it's super important to at least connect the Class 4 bikeway to this intersection. So yeah, thanks. I think that's probably about it on my comments there. And then I think that all these issues that we're bringing up with the pedestrian and bikeway farther down Second that, haven't really come up in the past couple of meetings, I think are really important, with just like thinking about how to deal with all, pedestrian stacking or bike stacking at these intersections, making sure that there's probably an urban design solution to it that helps people's behavior, everybody act accordingly. So I think the concept of having these tables or elevated areas to try to slow everybody down is a really good one. Hopefully we can consider that. And I also wanted to mention lastly about the this curb between the cycleway and the street, having that 6-inch curb, which I think is important. But again, yeah, the visibility of it definitely is a little unnerving. I think that yes, bollards can get crashed into, but same thing with the curb. I think that the bollards do add some visibility, which I do think is important, especially where the road shifts a bit. So if I think that's just super important. Anything to add that visibility further down on Second Street where there's that curb is going to be super important. I think that's probably a good solution. I think that'll be it for me. But thanks so much for your work and everybody on the committee, and April, your work with the team on working on this extension.
Great. Thank you, Dave.
Next up is Sunny.
Hi, Sunny.
Hello, DJ. Hello, April. Thank you so much. I just got on your meeting just to catch up things, and I just gonna go over just quickly. I just sent a message to concern about G Street crosswalk. I used to go the little exercise class on G Street, so I was used to drive at that intersection, making a left turn going south onto Second Street and heading east. I think I only saw one crosswalk from the south side of the road and north side of the road. Now I see basically three crosswalks, one on the east side, west side, and along the Second Street, north side of the Second Street. So is there something added? Because another person mentioned about majority traffic goes left turn, going south on G Street, making left turn onto 2nd Street. So if there's somebody's crossing, that car will not able to make a left turn onto 2nd Street, then their backup's gonna happen on G Street. That car's not merging onto 2nd Street. And one more thing is I have a really good friend. My kids are friends. The family lives on G Street and another friend who lives on West Street. So kids cross this crosswalk quite often to each other. And I just reach out to one of the mom saying, hey, they're talking about this crosswalk right down the half a block from your house. Are you in the meeting? And she said, no. Oh, I've got almost hit by a car walking the dog on this crosswalk. And she's concerned. I'm mentioning this because I know you guys, BPAC committee is doing an amazing job on this, but this cannot be the only public way to publics to aware of this is happening, because I want this has to be somehow reached out to the community that are not following city website to read, oh, there's BPAC meeting, I have to go because this is ultimately I found out my street crosswalk is happening in next 6 months or a year from now. So I'm literally begging to the Public Works Department, BPAC, you guys doing an amazing job, but this can't be the only way to communicate public awareness about these changes. So thank you for doing this, but I also want, it's like a Zoom meeting is great for now. It's the only way to do this, but I think it's somewhere we have to make a copy of it, flyers dropped off the residential areas around here if they really think they need to give the input for this area, or just in-person meetings somewhere outdoor or something so people could be more aware of it. It would be great. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunny. April or Lauren, just for members of the public that wanted to learn more about this project, are there other places that they can stay connected to this?
Yeah, in several locations. We have a 3rd Street rehabilitation project website on the city's website. I can add it to the chat after I'm sharing my screen. I can't do it at the same time. And then also we've been posting on Nextdoor, and we also have a DPW news on the city website, and you can also sign up to receive emails. So we do little memos or blogs about the project and what's happening, if there's upcoming meetings and stuff. And if you subscribe to that email address, you'll get every other week we post maybe like 6 to 10 articles on the city website on different things. You can also contact me, if you have any questions or comments. But this, we've met, I think we've presented this 3 times at BPAC, if not, I think this year. And then we've had community meetings, we had a council meeting. So there have been other meetings, but yeah, feel free to contact me. We're trying to get the word out in more places. We're just not sure how people receive information.
Yeah, I know you guys typically send mailers to residents within a certain distance of projects, but that's further down the line, right? That's generally closer to construction, right?
Yes and no. The area where between East and West End, we sent out letters because our initial proposal was to remove parking. And so we sent out letters to ask for feedback because we weren't sure how it was being used. And so we received a lot of feedback on the parking. And that's why the parking got put back in to the maximum extent we could put in as many stalls as we could, because we received that feedback. So there have been some physical letters that have been sent out. Lately, mostly we've been focusing on this side for actual letters, since this was the biggest change to what's going on in the project.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Any other public comments?
Yeah, Bjorn is next.
Great, thank you. Bjorn Griebenberg, Marin County Bicycle Coalition again. April, I have to say, every time you present an update on this project, you exceed my expectations. This is really exciting to see the proposal for the interim connection. I know that's been a real head scratcher, and I do have to say, I feel like this design is as good as it gets for a very challenging configuration. My initial concern was just about what Dave Rhodes touched on, which was the right turning movement for cars onto eastbound Second. But hearing that they'll be held with a probably a red right arrow or no right on red, that makes me feel much better. I was worried about them creeping out and trying to and blocking off the pathway for westbound cyclists. Again, I think that looks great. Hopefully there's some funding out there. I mentioned in the chat that MTC right now is considering making $50 million available for the entire Bay Area for quick build bicycle and pedestrian projects in 2021. Given that this involves some concrete and signals, I don't know how well this would apply, but we could certainly look into it. I'm sure Tam will be getting the word out as soon as that's official. But again, I'm just so delighted that you've found a way to make this happen, and really grateful for being responsive to the feedback that you heard from us and others in the bicycling community, that it was important to take this connection all the way over to West End. So I really can't thank you enough. Thank you. And then on the question of the crosswalk, I really liked the idea of kind of a shared mixing zone space that's not separated or programmed, really, something that where there's a little more flexibility in the use. And I do think if you were to signalize that for cyclists, whenever a pedestrian wants to cross, cyclists are going to ignore that signal, or they might just yield to the pedestrian and then continue on their way. To me, it seems a bit over-engineered to signalize that for cyclists. I definitely would favor a shared space. But again, thank you for all your great work on this project, and really looking forward to this becoming a reality.
Thanks, Bjorn.
Then Patrick had his hand up, but he put it back down. So, but I'll unmute you in case.
Hey, Patrick. Oh no, you're muted again.
Excuse me?
There we go. Now I can hear you.
Well, first off, I'd like to echo Bjorn's comments and Don's comments for the excellent work of the Department of Public Works and the BPAC and the City Council. This project actually, where it came from originally was on the Cross Marin Trail study from 2010 was the year that Don was reaching for. And it was part of the non-motorized pilot program. And what I think you guys, I got to tell you, you've done an inordinate job of engineering. You've accomplished things I didn't think that were possible in this area. I think as people look back in 10 years and 20 years and 30 years, that they're going to look back and go, man, whoever thought of this project, whoever came up with this and put it in and figured it out to get it right, is as the climate continues to change, as people are looking for alternate modes of transportation, as electric bikes become one of the predominant methods of transportation, this is going to go down as a huge leading project, an inspirational project for not only Marin County, but for the Bay Area, for the state. It's really just a tremendous project. So congratulations to you for all the good work you've done. Couple of suggestions regarding the intersection that we're looking at right here. One of the things they've done in Northern Europe was after doing a lot of separated bike paths, which they started to do in 1973 after the Arab oil embargo. That's when the Netherlands went from 13% ridership. They turned it down, and that was kind of their lowest point, and went back up. One of the things that on that inside curb of that barrier there, instead of having it being a 6-inch curb, which can sometimes be a curb that trips a cyclist over, is to put a rounded edge to it, so that if you go into it, the bike doesn't tip over to the right hand side. And so I would urge you to take a look at that rounded curb element. I think it's probably got examples of it throughout the United States now as well. The area in the intersection itself with the crosswalks, I think what you're talking about is that what you need to do is to do a speed table. And what the speed table does is it identifies to everybody visually. It's really and I guess my question, for April is what's the speed of the cars in this section right here?
Lauren, do you know? I'm not sure what the speed limit is versus the 85th percentile on the section.
Yeah, the speed limit's 35, and I think the 85th percentile is a little higher.
Yeah, well, anyway, I would do the only thing that slows cars down, right? The only things that really makes a change is physical environment. And so doing something like a speed table at this intersection would be what protects both the cyclists and the pedestrians. The thing that'll slow the cyclists down as they come into the crosswalk areas, like you said, having that raised crosswalk. But I'd look at doing an entire speed table, and then there's texture. And so texture will help identify for the cars that you're coming into a different situation. What a speed table does is it identifies to a car that you're coming into an area that's a pedestrian or a bicycle area. And so, if you could put stop signs up and everything you want, but the physical environment is what controls the cars and the speeds and the actions of the different mobilities. So the speed table would slow the cars down. The texture could slow cars down. On the bike path, you could put texture on the bike path on the sides where it crosses the crosswalk. And if the crosswalk's elevated, that'll also help protect the pedestrians because they're the most, most risky, they're highest risk users in the environment. And cyclists being next, and cars, of course, are not because they're inside of metal vehicles. But anyway, so I think the comments toward that were good. The other suggestion is, and I don't know about this, April, you guys would know about that. The guys at CSW would know about it. But if you were to extend that island forward just a little bit, you'd get a barrier in the middle. I know it has to be a minimum width. I think it's 6 feet. I'm not sure what the exact rules are, but anyway, just some suggestions there. And I just want to really applaud the group and let them know, let all of you know what a good job you've done. And I think that it's going to go down that, what a great project this was. The interim facility is just.
Patrick, can you wrap up?
Hats off to you guys for that. Thanks. And my other suggestion is I'm also in the bollard camp on the separation between the cars and the bikes. I think it'd be a good idea to have bollards on that as well.
Thanks, Patrick. Rachel, were there any other, or I'm sorry, April, were there any other public comments?
No, there's no other public comments.
There was one comment in the chat just asking when these recordings are available online. Lauren, do you know how fast those normally get put up? Or how long it takes?
Please give it a few days.
Okay. Yeah, for anyone listening along, these meetings are, now that we're on Zoom, they are recorded, and you can rewatch these things as many times as you want. So.
And if you want to, we can air them on Marin TV.
There you go.
That's an idea, actually.
Viewing pleasure at home. Well, let's go ahead then and close this item and move on to the next one.
Yeah, we're still working on 3rd Street. We just had separated it in the staff report. So just one quick thing I wanted to show you on the other end of the 3rd Street project over at Grand Avenue. This is a future bike connection. It's not part of this project, but this actually connects to the right here at 2nd Street is where the Grand Avenue Bridge is going and goes to the canal. And so what we were looking at doing is adding another cycle track through here that connects up to 4th Street, and then because since 4th Street is the primary bikeway in town, so it's a cycle track. I have a few zoom ins, so this kind of zooms in here. We're still providing our 11-foot lanes, and then we can provide a cycle track through here. And so as part of our safety project, all we're doing here is we're going to build these curb ramps in the final condition on both of these corners at 3rd Street, but we will not be building the bike facility and replacing all the sidewalk. That would be a future project.
I live over in this area. This is awesome. This is really needed. The Grand Avenue in there's got extra space, and if you're a cyclist coming over that bridge from the canal where a lot of people do bike, it just kind of dumps you out into a really chaotic area. For people who maybe are not oriented, like the bottom left would be United Market, the upper left would be the Valero gas station, upper right would be Rite Aid, bottom right would be, I guess there's a Starbucks over there.
Yeah.
I would ask, can this be carried through across? Oh yeah, it already is carried through. I'm sorry. Yeah, no, this is great.
Yeah, the reason why we came up with kind of the sketch is because we wanted to make sure whatever we were building on the 3rd Street corners would be like an ultimate condition. So we were hoping, if we can fit a path in there, let's build these now, at least this, these 2 corners.
I would suggest I think there's slanted parking there now. Is that right?
Yeah, it'd be removed, and there'll be 1, 2, 3. Right now we're showing 4 on-street parking stalls, and I think there was 6. I think that's what it says, 6 diagonal parking stalls. So there would be a reduction in parking here. This is just initial sketches. This will all be reviewed and gone over later, and we're going to look for some funding to try to get this project in also.
I just want to note the chat is still going on with more public comment. Don't want you guys to miss that.
Thank you. Also, I would also just note that this would be really helpful for kids coming to Coleman Elementary School. 50% of that school, which is over in Dominican, comes from the canal area. So this would be right along the route for most of those kids coming to school. Any other comments from community members? How many projects are you going to go through here, April? And would you like us to get public comment on each individual item as you go through, or would you like it to kind of wait till the end?
But this project was just to show the BPAC kind of a future project about 3rd Street. The next thing we're going to go through, Lauren and I are going to go back and forth between just city projects that are happening, and that can just have comments.
Sorry, I thought this was part of item number 7. Okay.
Oh, this is just part of the 3rd Street project. I guess it could have been under item 7, but there are some people who have asked to talk. I don't know if we want to do that now or if you.
Sure, yes. Yeah. The public needs an opportunity to comment on this too. I'm sorry, I didn't realize that we. So I guess
this is the end of the 3rd Street project update. We'll take public comment and then move to regular city project updates.
Sure, I got a little out of order here. Are there any public comments on this? Either on the whole 3rd Street project in general or on this 3rd and Grand for folks that may have already commented before?
There's just 2. There's Sunny, you should be.
Sure. Go ahead.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much. I just want to mention that in front of so I was going north in front between basically Grand Avenue, between the Trader Joe's lot and the United Market. There's a gas station in the United Market. And I realized opposite direction, going southbound on Grand, cars all piling up. So it was only 1 lane going southbound on Grand. Their right-hand side, the passenger side is facing United Market parking lot. And then I realized because there's only 1 lane going, but the cars backing up and they're basically piling up. I've seen that like way too many times because I was basically in that corner trying to merging onto 3rd Street going west. And because of the cars piling up, blocking the intersection, I couldn't make a left turn onto 3rd Street, literally. So I don't know if the traffic signal has to be changed or something that cars not able to go southbound. There's not one lane going down, there is not enough room to clear the enough traffic that wanted to go through. So if you create this bulb out, that's the area car was trying to not block the boxing the intersection. So they were going to move their cars on the side of the lane, almost like that bulb out is located right now. So go there to clear the space until the cars clear and they could merge back into the main road. So I just want to clear that the Public Works Department will be aware of it. Adding that bulb out is great for the pedestrian, but it'll definitely create the boxing the four-way intersection here. Because I don't know.
See what you're saying. I know one of the benefits to that bulb out, like you said, was shortening the pedestrian crossing distance.
Yes.
And I think the other reason was we were gonna use it to put the signal pole. But that's a really good comment, and we'll bring it back to the team to see if we can shrink.
Yeah, I could bring it out the time frame when I'm seeing that a lot, because I've noticed it. Not only there's a lot of traffic coming down from north side of the Grand towards the south, as well as there's several cars on 3rd Street turning onto the Grand, going Canal direction, I guess.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, Sonny, because I live over here and I have experience. This is often my experience. It's typically afternoon rush hour time period traffic. And I think that the source of it isn't really the lighting. It's there tends to be a big backup on East Francisco, like all the way back to 3rd Street. And then it backs up, or it backs up down 3rd. It also backs up down Grand.
Yep.
It's basically just because East Francisco is backed up. I don't really think it's a function of the lighting signals per se. There's just too many people trying to use East Francisco. And frankly, I think that's a function of the fact that there's people from 101 can't get off at the 580 ramp because of the ramp signal. So they come to Central to get off to go back to backtrack. It's a whole mess.
Yep.
But yeah.
And one more thing, I just looking at satellite photos of it, the mapping of the G Street going back to the 3rd Street West End bike path issue. I would really encourage to look into it and just creating the one crosswalk from the 2nd Street towards the G Street, because having 2 crosswalk and
Sonny, I got your comment on that, and other people had the same comment. So we'll bring that back to Rafat.
Thank you.
But I totally understand what you're saying.
The one of the reason is now C Street and D Street now no longer have a left turn only onto 2nd Street. So I have noticed a lot of Sun Valley community, like Lincoln Hill community, they have to get onto the 2nd Street, go onto the freeway when normal times pre-COVID, and even G Street will backing up. There's cars not able to make a left turn onto. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. April, are there any other comments on this item?
Just Bjorn.
Hey there, I'll make it quick. I just got muted.
Sorry, I was trying to pick someone else.
We can hear you. Oh, no, you're muted again.
Unmute yourself. I didn't touch it.
You're still muted.
Maybe you need to give him. There you go.
There we go. Am I unmuted now?
Yes.
Okay. I'll just make it quick. I was curious why for this stretch you're thinking 2-way versus separate bike lanes on each side of the road. And I'm not saying that because I think it's wrong. I'm just curious why you opted for that design.
Well, we were looking at how on all of the bike and peds are on the east side when they go across the Grand Avenue Bridge. So to try to navigate bikes to come, diagonally across 2nd Street to do a separate facility. We were thinking that maybe having them together and keeping them on the same street until they get to the to the main bikeway on, on 4th Street, or the main place that people go.
Gotcha.
That's what we were looking at. Again, this is just preliminary. If that's something that we should explore further, we can look at separating them. I think it was just more of the conflict across 2nd Street.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I know sometimes there are other that two ways can be inferior if there are potential conflicts at intersections or driveways, if it can be avoided. But yeah, again, it's just curious how you arrived at that. But yeah, I think it's worth considering both configurations.
We were also concerned because vehicles going north on Grand Avenue, there are 2 left-hand turn lanes when you're going north on Grand Avenue, and so we were worried about pedestrians coming the other direction.
Oh, right. That makes sense. Yep.
There's also slant parking on the other side of the street as well, except on the other side of the street, the southbound direction, the slant parking is sort of recessed into the curb rather than on the street, kind of in front of the CVS. And that, you'd have to keep that recessed parking because of the way it's configured. And that seems like you'd have poor visibility for a cyclist coming in and out of your parking spot. But okay, well, if there's no more public comments on this, April will close item number 6. We'll go to item number 7, which is city project updates. And it looks like you're going to do 4 different items. Why don't I suggest then that you go through all of them and we'll take public comment on all of them at the same time at the end.
Okay, Lauren, you're up on the first one.
Yeah, so I'll take the first 2 items. Just an update, the traffic engineering team has been working really hard on using about $1 million of grant funding to invest in our downtown infrastructure. And so that's adding detection, upgrading the signal controller and cabinets, which if you've seen our downtown, we have really old infrastructure. So we're able to get more data on all modes, from cars to bikes to pedestrians. And that data is gonna help us optimize the system. So it's really exciting. It's been a long time coming. And just to give you an idea of what we're getting, next slide, please. So here's our downtown area, and all these green circles mean that we have video detection at those locations, and we're able to monitor the cars, bikes, and pedestrians that go through. Next slide. So here's 4th and A Street. You can see there's a bunch of different boxes and they all mean something. Either a yellow box means a vehicle's entering, that's where a vehicle enters the intersection. A purple box is where a vehicle leaves the intersection. You can see in the top left picture, there's a small blue box, and that's a pedestrian. So these cameras are able to pick up, they're really smart. They're able to pick up all shapes and sizes of vehicles, bikes, and identify them as, a passenger vehicle or a large truck. And you can see in the top middle picture, there's a blue square, and that's showing them that a car is there. So it's pretty cool stuff. Still learning how to use all the data, but we've got some cool stuff coming. Next slide, please. And then this is just another intersection. This is 2nd Street and Tamalpais. Again, more boxes with vehicles and pedestrians. And if you look at the bottom left picture, you can see a pedestrian crossing. And wanted to show off the new green markings through the intersection, which April will talk about later. Next slide. The Sanderfell High School crosswalk project has broken ground. I think Kevin Haggerty knows because he drives by it every day. But this project started late October, and we had initially said we should get it wrapped up by the holidays. It'll probably be pushed into January 2021, and I'll do some more outreach for just letting people know of the schedule change. But I've discussed this in meetings before. So as to not disrupt the flow of traffic, the pedestrians will cross in 2 phases, and that'll help keep traffic flowing on 3rd Street. Next slide. Here's some exciting field pictures. So the first one on the left is that big box in the bottom left. That is the foundation for the big signal pole that'll go in. and they're pumping out the water because, as you know, this area is pretty low and there's lots of groundwater. And then the picture on the right is the another big foundation for the signal pole. And so they're filling that with concrete. And that's it for my updates. April's next.
Yeah, so one of our other projects that's under construction is the Francisco Boulevard East Sidewalk widening project that goes from the Grand Avenue Bridge down to Vivian. Phase 1 is pretty much complete. That's from Vivian to Harbor. And they just started phase 2 and 3. So if you've been out in that area, they've started setting up some traffic control, and that's between Yacht Club and Bay Street. The traffic control's out there. We're still looking at finishing construction in April 2021. And then here's some cool construction photos, because we like those, of the sidewalk, new sidewalk being poured. And this is kind of an overhead one. This is Medway right here. And so the temporary condition has some K-rails along here to protect the bikes and peds from vehicles. And then we have temporary barriers to separate the construction zone. So this type of setup has extended all the way down to Yacht Club, or they're in the process of doing it. They were supposed to start it recently. Okay, and then another project is the Francisco Boulevard West multi-use path phase 2. I know there's some people who are on this call who have already rode their bikes down this stretch. We're close. We're actually down to the last thing we need to install is we're going to install some trees within the buffer zone. That's going to happen in the next week and a half. And then we need to put in some of those bollards to actually make it an official class 4 facility. There's going to be green bollards through there, and those have been back ordered several times due to COVID, and we're hoping that we get them by the end of December. So people can use the path, but we don't want to officially open it because it's not officially class 4 until we put in some sort of physical separator between vehicles and bikes. As you can see on these are just a couple construction photos. The class 4 turns into a multi-use path when you get to Rice. So this image at the bottom is just kind of showing an example of the striping's not on this picture, but it's going to convert, and then bikes and peds are together on this last stretch until they get to phase 1. And the bottom right here is the striping that goes across 2nd Street and Francisco Boulevard West. And here's a little image. I know that this isn't necessarily how all bikes are riding it right now, but if you're coming, until we eventually continue the bike path through downtown Tamalpais, bikes that are going northbound are supposed to cross the 2nd Street here, wait at this curb ramp, and then they're going to cross on the crosswalk, and then they continue on the Sharrows. I just wanted to point that out. I know that that's not necessarily what's happening right now, but we tried. That's what our intent is on the striping, is we're trying to provide a safe way for bikes to get across in the interim until we can connect all the way to 4th Street. Oops, wrong way. And then this is not on the agenda, but just so everybody knows, there are now lights out there on phase 1. So this picture was taken at 5:45 today. So just to show you that we do have some lights going on. So you can ride that at night now.
What poor person did you make get up at 5:45 to take that? God.
It was tonight. It was 2 hours ago or 3 hours ago.
5:45 p.m. It gets dark so early.
Oh.
Great. Thank you, April. Questions or comments from committee members?
I have a couple of questions. I was wondering on the video cameras, how you store that data. Do you store all that video? Or is it converted to some kind of reports that are later used for analysis for different things? I'm curious about that. The other 2 questions I had is, I think that there's a lot of opportunity when we're redoing infrastructure to look at stormwater and green infrastructure, but also how I know that eventually phase 2 requirements are going to be put in, and there's some filtering systems, but there's also opportunities for green infrastructure. And I'm wondering what DPW's process is. I know that's part of DPW's bailiwick, but I'm wondering how these projects integrate that kind of planning at the same time when designing projects. And then I just had a question about the west multi-use path. April, you showed the intersection. It looked like the bicycle crossing was marked differently than the pedestrian crossing. Is that, I was just wondering if those were two different, if that pedestrian crosswalk is going to remain and the bike is going to be separate, or if that, or if they're going to be both combined sort of at that more diagonal. And those are my questions.
The 15 pedestrians crosswalk will remain. We did add a new ramp on the south side here, but the crosswalk is separate. We're starting to separate the bikes and peds at this crossing. So the bikes are supposed to use both directions are supposed to use the green dashed, and pedestrians are using the regular crosswalk. There.
April.
I also had a question on stormwater. I can't really answer that. If April, if you want to jump in on that one.
Yeah, it kind of depends on the project. I know we're doing, like for the 3rd Street project, we're redoing a lot of drainage there, and we're going to add in more trees to help with the urban or the greenhouse gas offset. On this project, for the most part, what we did was we took the existing roadway and just striped it and just did some curb returns. We were able to get in 12 trees along the bike path, so we socketed out the existing asphalt out there and put in some trees to help with greenhouse gases through that location. So it just kind of depends on what the project is and how much we are affecting, like how much area we're actually digging up, and that depends on how much stormwater treatment that we do. So this project we didn't tear up a lot of infrastructure, so we still added in trees, and in addition we also have we're doing a lot of mitigations along the Mahone Creek, which is going to happen over the next couple weeks, and along the unnamed channel that's along San Francisco West. So we're improving the habitats of the stormwater through there.
I can answer Kate's question about the video detection. So it's stored for a week. And some of the stuff the video detection is giving us, it's more, the stuff I know most about is related to vehicles. So we can get travel time, what's the travel time down 2nd Street, down 3rd Street. And that's actually also related to like Bluetooth data. We can get information on arrivals on when cars arrive on a red. We want to keep traffic flowing on 2nd and 3rd Street. So it'll give us reports like, 60% of your cars were arriving on red. You might want to change the signal timing a little bit. So we're going to be able to use that data and make some changes. Rush hour could be improvements to rush hour traffic, but it's pretty congested in every direction. But I think we'll see more improvements in the middle of the day kind of traffic when you're driving around.
Can you make dynamic? Is this like a dynamic system where you can adjust traffic signal phasing on the fly throughout the day in real time?
It's not totally, we call that adaptive. It's not totally adaptive. It's the system we have is signal performance measures. So it gives us a lot of data, and then what we're able to do is mostly related to corridors. So like changing offsets of the signals when it goes green, when the next signal goes green after the signal before it, and we'll be able to make those changes.
Cool.
It's like an air traffic controller almost. April, can you report back on the feedback you got from the canal community when you reported to them about the work that's being done in the canal?
Yeah, I went over some additional projects too. We have a bunch of canal crosswalk projects that are going on in the canal area. So I pointed out where those are happening. We're doing those quick build bulb outs with some bollards and enhanced crossings, as well as some rectangular rapid flashing beacons. So they're thankful to see that we are doing several projects through there. And there was a few comments. I went through a shorter presentation on some of these other items that we've talked about, like 3rd Street and stuff. And yeah, it was a great meeting. I was happy to give an update.
great. If you need, there's a youth Spanish language radio station on Fridays at 4 o'clock. And they're always looking for guests to present if you want to present on that one. And there's also a Spanish language radio show that has been getting a lot of views. That's doing a lot of reporting on the COVID and stuff. And they're also interested in different things too. So let me know.
Are there any other questions or comments from committee members before we open to public comment? No? Okay. Well, let's go ahead and open the public comment period. April or Lauren, you want to?
Yeah, Sunny, please unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you. I just so exciting to see the video. Lauren mentioned video data recording of all the intersections in downtown. I'm very excited about those being installed and you guys collecting data. I would love to know more about it and how you guys collecting data. I mean, you explained a little bit about it. Also, I would just really interested in actually use the data to relieve the congestions happening around the D Street and C Street, since that one-way direction for D and C have been changed, because I'm still very skeptical about that change, about the people who lives nearby that use the D and C all the time. Personally, I have actually drove from C Street to going Sun Valley School for over 10 years, every day, twice a day at least. And then later I did it actually 3 times a day because I've been volunteering at school a lot. So I must say that I actually have built some sort of sense of how much it takes from First and C Street going all the way to Fifth Avenue and making left turn onto going Sun Valley area, going west on Fifth Avenue, and also coming back down to D Street, heading home south of San Rafael downtown. It's a drastic change how much signal and every intersection I have to wait, because now I'm dealing with the left turn turning cars waiting for their signal or their chance to turn against opposite direction going straight. So I have found it just really doesn't help the traffic to flow when C and D are not one way only towards 2nd and 3rd Street. I'm seriously thinking about bringing this up to the fire chief and council members and the city council members as well as mayor to change it back to one way, because it's certainly, I feel like so many people are spending so much time just stuck on the signals because of this two-way conversion from one way. And I just want to know about more this video data recording might give some more information about it, and not only comparing signal changes or something, but I wish this was been done even before C and D was one way, and compare that. And I don't know if you want to talk to some general public. A lot of people from Grosser Park neighborhood has spoken about it. It's changed quite a bit of their commute. And we will eventually, I don't know, it might take 5 years, go back to normal commute hours of people driving a lot of time, shuttling the kids to Sun Valley School and heading back to freeway to get to work. So that's all. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Sunny. Any other comments, April? You're on mute, April.
Sorry, Jean, you're up.
Thank you. So many exciting pieces of infrastructure going in for bikes and peds. It's wonderful. It's just like hallelujah. Thank you so much for all you're doing in San Rafael, to the staff. Just a little question about the at the 2nd Street crossing of the North-South Greenway. And there's a pedestrian crosswalk, and then there's the bike green crosswalk. Do the cars coming east on 2nd Street who have the opportunity to turn right to go down the one-way, yes, thank you. Do they have a no turn on red there? So if I come out, like I know if when I come on my bike, if I come up to that to the crosswalk where it's moved, it's great. I'm really visible and I know they're gonna stop for me. But if I come out of the bike path, do they know not to go right on red there? Thank you.
I'll have to get back to you, Jean. I don't know off the top of my head. I know they did a lot of signal modifications in the last couple of weeks out there, but off the top of my head, I'm not sure. I would think that it is red, but I need to double check. I thought there was a sign that was out there also. So,
I mean, it's way better than it was because of the configuration. There's much less temptation for cars to roll through on red without really looking for pedestrians. So it may not be necessary just by the new configuration, but I just would like to know, as a bicycle coming north on the North-South Greenway, whether or not they do have a no right turn on red. Thank you.
Lauren? I had a question for Lauren. I was just wondering, before we adjourn, if we would have an opportunity to say something about Jerry before you close the meeting.
Yeah, of course. I think there are a few more public comments.
Okay.
Dave,
Hey there. Thank you. Awesome stuff. Thanks for the update. I'm super stoked to try out the new bike path that's on the screen here. I just want to mention, there's been some comments about decreasing, I guess, car traffic in terms of like trying to improve commute times across downtown because of congestion in cars. And frankly, I think that it's the interest of this committee to advocate for bike and pedestrian safety and infrastructure. And I'm less concerned about car commuting times across the whole city. And I think that, thinking about the C and D, one-way conversion to two-way has been an improvement, and I think slowing cars down is actually something that is an improvement to pedestrian and bike safety throughout San Rafael. So I think that's something that we all ought to just remind ourselves of when we're talking about things going on in the city that have to do with cars. And then the other thing is, I was really impressed by seeing all this information on the cameras in downtown. Lauren, I guess a question maybe for you, since you brought it up, and the committee as a whole, is to start to try to get information on pedestrian and bike activity through the intersections or maybe through the corridor, as maybe one suggestion that the committee may want to look into is saying, hey, what are the latest figures on how many people are biking or walking through downtown? And now that we have this information, having a report, hopefully it's simple, like if it's just as easy as clicking a button, not asking for more work, but just, hey, if this is a simple thing that the computers, can generate for us, we really need to see trends over time, see how, improvements that we're making impact the actual use of the infrastructure that we're investing in. So something to consider in the future.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. We do have the ability to get volumes for all modes, and we can split it out to just, pedestrians on 4th Street or pedestrians on 3rd, and same with bikes.
Yeah, neat. It'd be great to see those figures maybe every time this committee meets, if it's easy, it's like if it's just hey, here's the update, that type of thing. So I think it'd be really great.
I hear a lot about vehicles from other constituents, so I felt the need to mention that.
Outside of you know, just people transiting around too. I feel like the pedestrian data would be an interesting indicator about people's use of downtown.
Yeah, totally.
What do you think?
Seasonally, infrastructure changes, and then of course, you know, through, you know, maybe once kids go back to school, and you know, we could actually see some changes through, you know, through that. So all sorts of different stuff. Good opportunity. More data is a good.
Yeah. Great. Well, thanks, Dave. Are there any other public comments?
Yeah, just Dawn is the last one.
Thank you for putting this on. I just want to echo Gene's comment about the right turn on eastbound 2nd going onto the new one-way westbound Francisco Boulevard. That's a no-brainer. I mean, you really don't want people going through that, crossing the crosswalk, crossing a bike, a wonderful bike lane through the intersection. If it's not there, April, I would suggest they get it up there because that's really, really significant. And thank you. And by the way, I'm also very, very excited about the fact that we're getting a crosswalk going to San Rafael High School. We've been trying to get that for years. And it's really, really important because a lot of people are coming from that direction. And there's no way to get over there if it's convenient. So thanks.
Thanks, Don. Is that it now, April? All right. Well, we will go ahead and close item number 7. And that takes us to, let's see here. So we'll get down. Last item here is just a request for future agenda items, which would be for our February meeting. Requests from staff, or I mean, community members. Nothing? Okay. Well, I guess, Lauren, this might be one now where you work with Kate on setting up the agenda for next time, since Kate will be our new committee chair after this. So thanks, everyone. Well, Kate, you had said something about Jerry, since we're going to move on to the last.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we say something about Jerry. And I worked on the BPAC with Jerry for maybe 10 years or maybe a little bit less than that. I was starting to worry about him when he wasn't showing up for meetings because it was unlike him to miss that many in a row. I think he was a good guy and that he was passionate about San Rafael. He was on the Planning Commission as well as BPAC. What I learned from him, which is really hard for me, is not to be emotional in my communication when I'm passionate about something. And I felt like Jerry really mastered being kind of laid back, but passionate at the same time about the things that he cared about in the city. And Jerry and I didn't always see eye to eye on some of the issues, but I always felt like he was a compadre at the BPAC, that we both cared about the city and we could share our views and care about each other and care about the city and still disagree on issues. And I do miss him. So that's just what I wanted to say.
Well said.
I'd like to add that I worked with Jerry on Sustainable San Rafael for many years, where he was our secretary. And again, you couldn't ask for a better friend or a better person to serve on a board. He was my ride when it rained, when I refused to ride my bicycle. I got to be too much of a sissy when it got wet and cold. But Jerry was also a olive tree farmer up in Nevada. He had a little farm up there and he raised olives and he produced a really fine olive oil. So he was a great around guy. He was just a terrific guy, and I'm going to miss him a lot. So, Jerry, to you.
Nice. Well, thanks, everyone. Those are nice ways to end the meeting. Well, I guess that'll be that for our December meeting. Have a great holiday, everybody. Stay safe.
And what time, adjourning at what time?
8:14.
Honor of Jerry Boletto.
Yep.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.